Good morning. Good
Good.
morning.
Good morning and welcome back to Online Sunday School. Last week we talked about how God created the earth, and that was pretty cool, eh?
Yeah.
And He could just speak it. So this week we're going to do the next part of Genesis, which is right in the very front of our book, and that's when things kind of went wrong. Do you know what went wrong? Adam and Eve got in trouble. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about, so God made the earth and he put Adam and Eve in a garden, and the garden was called Eden. And he said there was two trees in the middle of the garden, two beautiful trees. And the Lord said, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat of it, you will surely die." So should you eat from that tree?
No.
There was two trees. One was knowledge of good and evil, and the other one was the tree of life. So, but he said you can eat from any tree, but just not, which one?
The one that's like the good and evil.
Yeah, the knowledge of good and evil. And he said, don't do that. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" Now, first of all, there's some things about the Bible that I'm not going to understand until I get to heaven. So one of the things I'm not going to understand is this snake was talking. Have you ever heard of a talking snake?
No.
No. So I wonder if maybe back then all the animals could understand. Oh, our camera is moving. Are we good now? I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe they could understand each other. Maybe, because when I tell my dog to do something, he understands me. So maybe there was more of an understanding back then. Anyway, the snake said, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" Is that what he said? Did he say? No. What did he say?
He said you could eat from any tree or anything from the garden, but the logical of good and evil.
Exactly. And the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden. You must not touch it, or you will die." And the snake said, "You will not surely die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." He said, "You just don't want to, he doesn't want you to eat it so that you're not as smart as him." Do you think that's true?
No.
Why did God say he didn't want them to eat?
Because he doesn't want them to die.
He didn't want them to die. Exactly. And when the woman saw the fruit of the tree was good for food and nice to look at, it was also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and she ate it. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. And the eyes of both of them were opened. Oh my goodness. So now they knew good from evil, right? They knew bad things. Before that, everything was perfect. So then God came and he said, "Where are you?" And they were hiding because they had no clothes on. And before it didn't matter because they didn't think anything of it. But now they were ashamed, and so they were hiding, and God said, "Did you do this? Did you eat from that tree?" And so Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the snake, but they made a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when sin came. That's when the world got broken. And they had to leave the garden because the tree of life was still in there. And you can't eat from both trees. You either have the knowledge of good and evil, or you have the tree of life. And they already made their choice, which made God very sad. But that's what they did. So they left the garden, and then evil came into the world because of sin. And that's why we have sin. Do you know what sin is?
No.
is kind of the knowledge of good and evil. It's doing the bad things. So what kind of bad things can we do? What's
Kill people.
kill people? And what about lying?
That's bad.
That's bad.
Mm-hmm.
What about cheating?
That's also bad because if you cheat on a test, usually you have to redo it. Or
Yeah.
if you like cheat during a game, like in this one passage at reading, there's a guy tricked his friends and then they didn't want to play with him.
That's right. Because nobody's going to like you if you're evil, right? Let me think. What else? How about hating people? Or being jealous of people? Those kind of things?
Yeah.
Let me think of what else is not something evil that you do, but something that is not perfect anymore. What about sickness?
Yeah, it's not perfect.
That's not perfect. In a perfect world, we don't have sickness, right? When we get to heaven, is there sickness? No. So all these things are not in a perfect world. In the perfect world, when Adam and Eve were in that garden, do you know what there was not? There was not death. Nobody died. Not even animals. So, if there was a little bunny, I want you to think back to last week. When a little bunny was hopping past a lion, what do you think the lion did?
Ate the bunny.
Eat the bunny?
Yeah.
That's what he would do now, right? But back then, do you remember it said, let me see. It said they made it said, I give you every seed-bearing plant and every tree with fruit, and they will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the earth and the birds of the air and the creatures that move on the ground. Everything that has the breath of life in it, I give green plant for food. So what did the lions eat? Did they eat bunnies?
No.
No. Because in a perfect world, there would not be death, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't eat bunnies. They ate salad. They ate grass and stuff like that. But once the world was broken, because once you invite sin into the world, then everything else happens. And I'm going to kind of show you guys. I want to talk about, some people say that it's not fair. Adam and Eve did a bad thing. And now we have sin, right? Everybody who's born sins. We all do some bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And all sins are the same, right? Not in our eyes. We think some things are worse than others, but God says they're all the same. So some people say, well, that's not really fair. Adam and Eve did the bad thing, and we get punished for it, right?
Life isn't fair.
Life isn't fair. No, that's true. So this is what happens, is the want to is still in us. Sometimes we want to tell a lie. If mommy says, who broke that lamp? And you would love to say, oh, that was Madison. When it wasn't really, right? The want to is still in there because you know you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
But we always have a choice, just like Adam and Eve had. We have the choice to do the right thing. So the want to of the sin is still in us, but it's our job to try to make the right choices. And sometimes that is hard. And sometimes we don't mean to make the bad choice, but everybody sins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, sometimes, like Adam and Eve, they didn't understand what was the big deal. There's an apple hanging on the tree. How bad can it be, right? It doesn't. But they didn't know everything, right? God knew what would happen. So just like I have a cup here, what could happen bad if we lifted a cup?
Sometimes it can slip out of your hand.
Sometimes. Hannah, why don't you lift up the cup?
Oh, can't do.
So I knew something that you didn't know. I knew that it was full of marbles, and you didn't. So you thought, well, what's the big deal? It's not a big deal if we lift that up, right? But you didn't know what was going to happen. So sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we just have to know that when God says, don't touch it, we shouldn't touch it, right? Because we don't know. Now, I made something here that I want to show you. Oh, I got to get my stand. And these are doors. Can you see the doors? Okay. So, this is the perfect door. This is the door, just like the good and evil. This is the knowledge of good and evil door. And it's all shiny, and it's sparkly, and it looks awesome. And then we have these other doors. And there's things like killing people, and lying, and cheating, maybe hitting your brother. Oh, you don't even have a brother. And hating people, and being jealous, and sickness. What other things happen in a broken world that has really not a whole lot to do with our choices, but just because the world is broken? What about a tornado?
Hurricanes.
Tornadoes and hurricanes?
Storms.
Yeah. Do you think that there would be a tornado that would suck your house up in a perfect world?
No.
Not in a perfect world, right? So we'll put a tornado on here. We can put death on here, because in a perfect world, nothing would die, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is you think, well, I'm just going to do one thing. But I'll show you what happens. Jenna, can you open up the door of good and evil? What happened to all the other doors? They all opened. So when we open up that door, we opened up all the rest of the doors to let the world be not perfect. And Satan gets to be in the world, and everything is not perfect. And people say, well, why does God let that happen? But it's because it's not a perfect world. When we get to heaven, are all these doors going to be open? No, they are all going to be closed up. Right?
Yeah.
And all that knowledge of good and evil, do you think we'll know some stuff? Maybe we'll know some of the answers. Maybe we'll know why Eve could listen to a snake. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll know why she decided it was a good plan to be like God instead. Right? But we make some choices. And it's still, because what she wanted, she had everything. If you were in a perfect world and had everything, would you be satisfied? You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. But she wasn't. She wanted more, right?
Yeah.
She wanted to have more knowledge, to be like God. She wanted to have what she couldn't have. And we are still like that today. We have so much stuff. We live in a good country. And we have good doctors, and we have good schools, and we have good mummies, and we have good daddies, and we can go to church when we want to go to church.
Yeah.
And we still want more stuff. I hear people whining all the time. One of the people I hear whining is me. Because sometimes I'm not satisfied either. We need to remember to be happy with God, what God gives us. Because He gives us amazing stuff. And not to want everything that God says, don't touch that. Don't do that. Don't be smoking those cigarettes. Don't be doing those things. And we say, but we want to. Everybody else is having so much fun. We need to be happy with what God gives us, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so we try to be perfect. So now I'm going to show you our craft. So this is one that I made. This is a door. Okay? Beside you is some paper. Can you pass that over here? Give one to you and one to Jenna. So what you need to do is cut out a rectangle. And if you want to trace it out, you can, or you can just cut a square or a rectangle. Just do the best you can. So these are going to be our doors. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a choice of one is doing good and one is doing not so good. So we got to pick our choices. Because we know what's good and evil, right? How do we know?
Because some things, like if you were killing somebody, you would know that's bad.
You would know that's bad. And if you're really not sure, if you are not that smart and you don't know if killing somebody's bad, the Bible tells us killing is bad, right?
Yeah.
It tells us in here what you should do and what you should not do. And also, the Holy Spirit is in your heart and He says, that's a bad idea. And He gives you a bad feeling, right? Okay, you're going to need your papers back because I want you to cut a circle. Probably, I don't know, about this big.
Or
Just cut a circle. It doesn't have to be perfect. Not out of your door, but out of your other paper. See, this was my circle. Because this is how your door is going to stand up. Is it hard to do, Jenna? Here, I'm going to tear that off. Then you don't have such a big paper to play with. Okay, Hannah, now can you cut your circle right in half? Just do one big snip, and Jenna, you do it too. Okay, and now you're going to take a snip, and you're going to do the top of the circle down like this. You can put them both together and snip them both at the same time. Not all the way through, just about halfway.
like that.
Yep. And do the other one.
Like here.
No, do the tops. We don't want to cut the flat part. We want to cut the round part. Don't
Here.
cut my fingers off. Yeah. Snip. Good job. Okay, now you're going to make two little snips in the bottom of your door.
How big?
About the same height as you did your snip in your circle. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't matter. Just do two snips. If it's not big enough, you can always do another one. You can snip it a little bit higher.
I cut one short.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take your door and you're going to take your circles and you put one slot into the other, like this. And push them up as far as you can. And then your door is going to stand. Now, you can make a mark for your doorknob, or you can glue a bead on there if you want to, and do it on both sides. So that's your door. And on one side of the door, we're going to put all the things that we want to be. So I have some papers here, so we can write honest, because in a perfect world, people would be honest, right? And that's what God wants us to be, is honest. So we can write, you can either use stickers or you can just write, and write all the things that would be in a perfect world, like health and life and being happy and being honest and being fair and being kind. And on the other side is going to be things that God does not want us to be. And He doesn't want there to be sickness, and He doesn't want us to lie or to cheat or to hurt people, right? So we're going to do the two sides, and we always want to be choosing, because remember, we have sin inside of us, but we still get to choose if we act on that or not. And so I want you to always have this door, and remember, don't open up any doors that we shouldn't open. So that's the end of our Sunday school lesson. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
In the set up a place for Adam and Eve in the garden, with land and seas and lights up in space for Adam and Eve in the garden. Lambs and wolves lived together in peace with Adam and Eve in the garden. No fears, no worries, no death, no disease for Adam and Eve in the garden. Today we don't live in that first paradise, 'cause Adam and Eve bought that old serpent's lies. But we too will live in a paradise place, filled with God's beauty, His presence, His grace. We rejoice, loving God made it very good for Adam and Eve in the garden. Everything fit together like God said it should for Adam and Eve in the garden. Crystal clear water, blue skies up above for Adam